Hello and welcome to the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast. I'm Harriet Frew, eating disorder therapist, here to support you in overcoming disordered eating and finding peace with food. So thank you so much for being here today. Now today I want to talk a bit about what happens when you come off the GLP-1 meds, because I am working with more and more people inside the therapy room who are really struggling when this happens. So I think it's a really relevant topic. Before I dive in today, I just want to say that my new app has 20% off until January the 2nd. So do check out the link in the show notes, or if you're on Substack, you can find the link there. Okay, so let's dive in. So according to the recent BBC iPlayer documentary about the GLP-1 use, it really sort of talks about GLPs being more prolific than ever. Okay, so the BBC iPlayer documentary was, I think, released on the 18th of December or around that date, and it was just sort of talking about what happens when you come off the GLP-1 meds. So I really recommend, actually, if you're interested in this, go and look it up if you have access to iPlayer. Obviously, this is going to be more for the UK. So they were saying on the documentary as well that 1.5 million people in the UK are using weight loss injections. Now, apparently that is 1 in 46 people, 2% of the population, and it's quite a lot of people. And when you take the meds, you're likely to experience rapid weight loss, at least initially, the average patient losing 15% of their body weight in the first year. Now, GLP use as well is likely to increase further as the meds become available as pills rather than as a gruesome injection, and that's going to be in the very near future. Now, watching the recent documentary detailing what happens when people stop using weight loss injections confirms much anecdotal evidence seen currently in the therapy room. I mean, we still don't really know the long-term effects or how people are affected, but we are definitely seeing some common themes. Now, I guess it's really important to acknowledge that for many people, the weight loss injections are a valuable tool on their health journey, and also just to acknowledge that some people are taking the GLP-1 meds as well, not for weight loss reasons, for other reasons as well. So just to really just put that into the conversation. Now, I know for many people, taking the meds is not an easy ride. Often comes with hefty financial burdens. You know, talked on the documentary about some people even selling household items to fund the meds, and also health costs. You know, a lot of people weren't feeling very good on the meds. Things like hair loss, stomach pains, poor sleep, all of these being very, very realistic things. And several people reporting feeling actually extremely unwell, but almost like being prepared to override the symptoms due to the colossal weight loss experience. Okay, so I guess the kind of like the benefit, in air quotes, of the substantial weight loss was kind of overriding experiencing those symptoms. And, you know, the pull to lose weight is understandable, isn't it? For some, it's genuinely motivated, maybe by some health benefits, but also the societal pressures remain higher than ever. You know, it's such a thing, with smaller bodies meaning acceptance and fitting in. So it's so understandable that we are really pulled towards anything that's going to help with this. Now, it's common practice to take the meds for approximately 4 to 6 months, but that seems to vary a lot for individuals. I don't think there's like a set amount. You know, some people have been on the meds for much longer than that, but that seems to be fairly common practice for like a sort of short to medium length time period. But then they will often stop, perhaps due to the side effects, the health effects, maybe financial pressures, or maybe they're reaching a weight plateau and the meds just aren't working in the same way anymore. Now, I'm in the therapy room, I'm seeing increasing numbers of clients who were taking either Mounjaro, Ozempic, Saxenda, is that how you say it, or Wegovy, but have now stepped away for those reasons because of maybe finances or health or weight plateau. And then they're understandably struggling in the aftermath as their bodies readjust and normal body physiology returns. So I think one of the things to really talk about, and this was talked a lot about in the documentary, is food noise. And it's challenging to sustain the significant weight loss when the food noise returns. So what do we mean by food noise? Food noise describes the persistent, intrusive thoughts about food that people have even when they're not hungry. It's the constant mental chatter even about what, when, and how much to eat, which bubbles through daily life. Now, one of the celebrated benefits of the GLP-1 meds is the decrease in food noise. Now, this is an understandable and welcome relief for anyone who is usually food obsessed from dawn till dusk, of course. And GLPs work by increasing feelings of fullness and satiety, slowing digestion, and reducing hunger cues. So the food cravings and food noise dissipate to a gentle background hum. Now, for some people, the removal of that food noise actually allows a body reset and improved relationship with food, even post-meds. So I think it's important, again, to acknowledge that. But for others who have likely had a lifelong difficult food relationship, the meds offer a temporary food-focused respite. But in my opinion, they're a bit like a plaster sticking over a gaping wound, because coming off the meds, what I'm seeing in the therapy room is some people are experiencing an avalanche of food noise, which can feel overwhelming. And it's almost described in the documentary, it was described as like a switch going back on. So even though hunger signals have been significantly reduced whilst on the meds, the body has essentially been in a state of restriction and an extreme calorie deficit, essentially starvation. So naturally, substantial weight loss results when you're on the meds. But I think talking a bit more about the tricky thing about dulling down food noise. Now, I guess from my experience, from many years of working in eating disorders and disordered eating, we know that food noise is often a symptom of past or present under-eating involving mental or physical restriction. So physical restrictions more obvious, the things like not eating enough, eliminating food groups, or delaying eating. But then mental restriction can include as well much judgment around food and not allowing full permission to eat the foods genuinely enjoyed. So the thing about mental restriction as well is sometimes someone may look as though they're eating a full range of foods, but every time they're eating, their inner critic is chastising every mouthful. So there's a real sense of deprivation and guilt around food, which really kind of amplifies this kind of mental restrictive feeling. And the Minnesota starvation study from 1950 demonstrates the potent power of restrictive eating. The men were starved of food in this post-war experiment and became psychologically obsessed with food, with some starting to binge eat. And physically, they were also severely compromised, with energy levels, libido, and temperature regulation impacted. And in fact, several of the men wished to retrain as chefs post-experiment, this being the extent of their food preoccupation. So we know that if food is restricted for humans, it's so challenging to sidestep the food fixation that follows. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just like our human survival instinct. And this isn't just for people who are underweight. You can be under-eating in any size body. I think that's really, really important to talk about. So we know that people with eating disorders usually do experience a lot of food noise, whereas if you have a healthy relationship with food, preoccupation will be far less. It'll be around 20% of the day maybe, and will fluctuate depending on lifestyle and habits. But spending 40 to 50% of the day obsessing is potentially a dangerous amount. With bulimia and binge eating, food preoccupation can be even higher, and clients with anorexia can experience up to 100% plus of food noise in their day, as they are even dreaming about food at night. So although turning off food noise might feel beneficial short term, and it may genuinely help some people reset hunger and fullness, for many people this is overriding the body's natural signals around hunger and appetite. So post meds, hunger returns and it can feel terrifying. Any weight gain can feel like intense failure. And for the first time, it's really tricky, because someone might feel like, oh my goodness, I finally got this body that I've longed for. I'm finally in a socially acceptable body. But it's almost inevitable, after that restriction of food, it's inevitable that some weight gain might happen, as the loss has been profound and possibly unsustainable. And in the therapy room, I am now seeing clients that are vulnerable to resorting to behaviours they may have not have used previously in a desperate attempt to keep the weight off. So they become driven by an understandable, compelling, addictive need to pursue the weight loss outcome, never mind the costs. This is what happens when people develop eating disorders. The preoccupation with restriction and weight loss and achieving certain numbers becomes so overriding. So binge eating, compulsive overexercise, purging through vomiting and laxatives, chewing and spitting, these behaviours creep in a desperate attempt to hold on. And any underlying self-worth issues can be amplified through this whole process. Weight loss becomes the life focus and barometer of success and well-being. Weight loss becomes the life area to control and feel safe. Weight loss becomes a distraction from other emotional issues going on. But the danger is that weight loss never feels enough. There is always more weight to lose, and the goalposts move continuously. And this is why it's so vital to have some psychological support alongside the meds. So post-honeymoon period, coming off the meds. When taking the meds, people will likely experience rapid weight loss, at least initially, the average patient losing 15% of their body weight in the first year, but the ongoing impact is more varied. Some of my clients find themselves eating despite the lack of food noise once the honeymoon period passes, or when plateauing with weight loss, they become disillusioned and return to food for comfort, and an obsession with weight and numbers can also begin. So my experience from the therapy room thus far is that the meds are a tool, but they don't necessarily fix underlying issues with food beyond the novelty early days. Rapid weight loss results in a loss of muscle over fat, which is not so beneficial for body composition. And it's suggested that people lift weights alongside the injections, but some people report feeling too unwell to practically implement this. Research studies from the documentary indicate that in 1 to 3 years post-meds, 60 to 80% of weight loss does return, and again, results between individuals vary considerably. Post-meds, body physiology must readjust, with the pancreas struggling to regulate its own GLP-1 production. The body may also go into survival mode, trying to re-establish its familiar set point. Rapid weight loss is always risky and potentially unsustainable. Research from The Biggest Loser TV show 6 years ago showed that the contestants' metabolic rates had never recovered due to the accelerated weight loss experienced. So working with the drugs in the eating disorder space and supporting clients in coming off them. So from the documentary, the advice is to reduce the dosage gradually and with medical support rather than an all or nothing approach. An exit strategy needs to be implemented from the beginning to plan the longevity of use and create an overall mindset around behaviour and habit change. And lifestyle shifts are essential alongside, including portion control, healthier habits and strength training. And relationship with food is key in the mix. Emotional binge eating is unlikely to disappear permanently through the medication alone. And poor mental health prior to using the meds may exacerbate potential obsession and fixation over weight loss, self-sabotage and low self-worth issues. So some final thoughts. As a therapist, I believe that it's important to recognise the presence of GLP-1 drugs, putting aside personal viewpoints. GLP-1s are not the magic elixir or the devil either. They can certainly be a valuable tool for some. And we need to reduce shame and have open conversations about their use. Clients will be tempted by the meds, whatever their shape and body size, and fundamentally everyone has autonomy and choice with their body. When working with clients, it's helpful to balance psychoeducation and a harm reduction perspective, and collaborations between eating disorder services and weight loss providers would be incredibly helpful with guidelines and protocols around best practice, as the industry is largely unregulated now. GLPs are here to stay, and their presence needs addressing with openness and compassion. So what's your experience with GLP-1 medications? Do share in the comments on Substack, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at eatingdisordertherapist_. Okay, thank you so much for listening. If you're not following me already on Instagram, do seek me out at eatingdisordertherapist_. And for further support with your relationship with food, do go to the eatingdisordertherapist.co.uk. And if you enjoy this podcast, I'll be so grateful if you follow, rate and review, as it helps it reach so many more listeners. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing another podcast episode with you very soon.